I never thought a simple favor from my mom would turn my entire world upside down. But when I drove her best friend home that night, something happened that I can't explain, and it changed everything. Alex always thought of himself as an ordinary guy with an ordinary life. At 25, he juggled long days at the warehouse and quiet evenings at home, where his mom's comforting routines filled their small but cozy house. Life wasn't thrilling, but it was predictable and safe. Emily, his mom's longtime friend, had always been a part of the picture. She was a vibrant, confident woman who lit up family gatherings with her infectious laugh. Her presence was so familiar that Alex barely gave her a second thought, until recently. When she arrived at their home one evening, something was different. Her usual spark seemed dimmed, her smile forced. Alex couldn't help but notice the tiredness in her eyes as she stirred a cup of tea at the kitchen table. His mom, ever the caring host, was quick to explain. "Emily's had some car trouble, and I thought she could use a good meal and some company," she said, ushering Alex to sit down with them. Dinner that night was filled with small talk, but the tension in Emily's demeanor was hard to ignore. She was polite, even kind, but there was a heaviness to her words that hinted at something deeper. It wasn't until his mom casually asked Alex to drive Emily home that things took an unexpected turn. Her car's still in the shop, and it's too late for her to find another ride. "Would you mind, Alex?" she asked. "Sure," Alex replied without hesitation. He didn't think much of it, just a quick favor for his mom's friend. But as the quiet drive unfolded, Alex found himself drawn into Emily's world in a way he hadn't anticipated. The conversation started simply, small talk about her car, her work, and life in general. But soon, she opened up about her recent divorce, her struggles to adjust, and how life hadn't been as kind to her as it once was. For the first time, Alex saw Emily not as his mom's friend, but as a person, a vulnerable, resilient woman with her own battles to fight. By the time he dropped her off, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. It was as if he'd glimpsed a side of Emily no one else had seen, and it lingered in his mind long after she disappeared into the night. The days following that car ride were strange for Alex. He couldn't stop thinking about Emily. It wasn't just her stories or her vulnerability. It was the way she had looked at him, the way she spoke with a mix of strength and fragility. For years, Emily had been part of the background, a fixture at family events, someone who was always around but never truly seen. Now, she was all Alex could think about. At first, he tried to dismiss the thoughts. After all, she was his mom's friend, someone who had lived an entirely different life. But the more he tried to push her out of his mind, the more she lingered. A song on the radio would remind him of her faint smile. The sight of his mom chatting on the phone would make him wonder if she was talking to Emily. It was maddening. Things took a turn a few days later when Alex spotted Emily walking along the sidewalk, carrying grocery bags and looking flustered. Without thinking, he pulled over. "Emily, need a lift," he called out. Her face lit up with surprise and relief. "Alex, you're a lifesaver," she said, climbing into the passenger seat. The bus was late, and I didn't know how much longer I could stand there. The car ride was filled with light-hearted banter, a stark contrast to the tension of their previous encounter. Emily joked about how Alex might need to start charging her for being her personal chauffeur, and he played along, teasing her about how she seemed to find trouble wherever she went. It felt natural, easy, and Alex found himself looking forward to the moment she laughed, a real, unguarded laugh that made her seem years younger. But beneath the light conversation, there was an undercurrent of something else. Emily hesitated before speaking, her words measured. "You're a good guy, Alex. Not a lot of people your age would go out of their way for someone like me." "Someone like you?" he asked, frowning. She shrugged, her smile tinged with sadness. "An older woman, someone who's been through things. Most people wouldn't bother." Her words lingered, planting seeds of doubt and curiosity in Alex's mind. Why did she seem so distant, so guarded? What had she been through that made her speak like this? And why did he care so much? That evening, Alex couldn't sleep. His mind raced with memories of Emily. The way her voice trembled when she spoke about her divorce, the look of gratitude in her eyes when he offered her a ride. Something was stirring inside him, something he couldn't quite name. But it wasn't just concern or empathy. It was something more. Over the next few weeks, Alex found himself seeking out opportunities to see Emily. Whether it was running into her at the grocery store or offering to help her with errands, he always managed to find a way. And Emily, for her part, didn't seem to mind. If anything, she seemed to welcome his presence, her guarded demeanor softening the more time they spent together. But with every moment of connection came a growing sense of unease. Alex began to notice the little things. How Emily hesitated before accepting his help, as if she didn't want to be a burden. How she glanced at him when she thought he wasn't looking, her eyes filled with something he couldn't quite place. And how his own heart seemed to race every time she smiled at him. It was confusing, exhilarating, and terrifying all at once. Alex knew he was crossing a line, but he couldn't bring himself to stop. There was something about Emily that drew him in, something that made him want to know more, to understand her in a way no one else seemed to. But as the connection between them grew stronger, so did the questions. Was he imagining things, or was there something unspoken lingering between them? And if there was, what would happen if they crossed a line they both seemed to be inching toward? The tension was building, and Alex could feel it in every conversation, every glance, every moment they shared. Something was about to give. It was only a matter of time. Alex couldn't ignore it anymore. What was happening between him and Emily wasn't normal. It wasn't just a friendship, and it wasn't just a passing connection. There was something deeper brewing, something that made his heart race every time they were together. And he was almost certain Emily felt it too. It started with the little moments, the stolen glances, and the accidental touches that lingered just a second too long. One evening, Alex had stopped by her house to drop off a book she had mentioned wanting to read. He told himself it was just a friendly gesture, but the way her face lit up when she opened the door made his chest tighten. "Alex, you didn't have to do that," Emily said, holding the book as if it were a priceless treasure. "But thank you. It's been ages since I've had time to read something just for fun." "You deserve it," Alex replied, his voice soft. "You've been through enough lately. It's the least I could do." Emily hesitated, her eyes searching his. "Come in for a coffee? It's the least I can do." Inside, the atmosphere felt different. The cozy living room, the smell of freshly brewed coffee, the sound of rain gently tapping against the window. It all felt too intimate, too charged. They sat on the couch, sipping their drinks, and for a while, the conversation was light and easy. But then, the topic shifted. "I used to love nights like this," Emily said wistfully, staring out at the rain. "Back when things were simpler." "You can still have nights like this," Alex replied, leaning forward. "It's never too late to find peace." She turned to him, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "You make it sound so easy." "Maybe it is," Alex said quietly. "Maybe it's just about letting yourself have it." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was thick with unspoken words, unacknowledged feelings. Emily's hand rested on the couch, inches from Alex's. Without thinking, he reached out, his fingers brushing against hers. It was a fleeting touch, but it felt like a spark had passed between them. Emily drew her hand back, her cheeks flushing. "Alex, I'm sorry," he interrupted quickly, leaning back. "I didn't mean to." "No," she said softly, her voice trembling. "You didn't do anything wrong." But the moment had already shifted. They sat in silence, the tension between them palpable. Alex wanted to say something, to bridge the gap that had suddenly formed, but he didn't know how. And Emily, for her part, seemed just as lost. The next time they saw each other, it was at one of his mom's dinner parties. Emily arrived looking radiant in a simple yet elegant dress, her hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. Alex couldn't take his eyes off her, and he wasn't subtle about it. "You look amazing," he said when he found a moment alone with her in the kitchen. Emily blushed, glancing down at her glass of wine. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." Their conversation flowed easily, but there was an undercurrent of tension that neither of them could ignore. Every time their hands brushed or their eyes met, it felt like the world around them disappeared. And when the party ended and Emily lingered at the door, asking Alex to walk her to her car, he knew he couldn't keep pretending. "Thanks for tonight," she said as they reached her car. "Your mom's dinners are always lovely, but tonight felt different." "How so?" Alex asked, his heart pounding. Emily hesitated, her gaze flickering to his. "I don't know. I felt less alone." "You're not alone," Alex said firmly. "You have my mom. You have me." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Emily smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. "That means more than you know, Alex." She reached for the car door, but Alex stopped her. "Emily, wait." She turned back, her expression uncertain. "Alex, I know this is complicated," he said, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. "But I can't keep pretending. I can't ignore what's happening between us." Emily's eyes widened, and for a moment, Alex thought she might push him away. But then, she stepped closer, her gaze locked on his. "I don't know if this is right," she whispered, "but I can't stop thinking about you." "Neither can I," Alex admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. For a moment, they stood there, the world around them fading into nothing. Alex reached out, his hand gently brushing her cheek, and Emily closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. It was a moment of vulnerability, of truth, and it felt like the world had stopped turning. But then Emily pulled back, her eyes filled with conflict. "We can't, Alex. This isn't fair to anyone." "I don't care," Alex said, his voice firm. "I can't ignore this. And I don't think you can either." Emily stared at him, her breath hitching. "I don't know what to do." "Then let's figure it out together," Alex said. "One step at a time." She nodded slowly, her eyes softening. "Okay, but we have to be careful." "We will," Alex promised, his heart pounding with equal parts fear and exhilaration. As Emily got into her car and drove away, Alex knew that everything had changed. There was no going back now. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. For weeks, Alex and Emily had lived in a fragile, unspoken understanding. They didn't talk about what they were, and they didn't dare tell anyone, not his mom, not their friends. But in the quiet moments when it was just the two of them, the weight of their connection was undeniable. It wasn't long before the secrecy started to wear on Alex. Every time he was with his mom, he felt like he was hiding something. And every time he saw Emily, the tension grew thicker. They couldn't keep pretending forever. Something had to give. That breaking point came on a quiet Friday evening. Alex's mom had gone out with friends, leaving him to his usual routine of takeout and TV. But just as he settled in, his phone buzzed with a text. "Emily, can you come over? I need to talk to you." Alex's heart raced. Emily rarely reached out like this. And when she did, it was usually for something serious. Without hesitating, he grabbed his jacket and headed to her house. When he arrived, Emily was pacing in the living room, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. The sight of her like this, so vulnerable, so unlike her usual composed self, sent a wave of worry through Alex. "What's going on?" he asked, stepping inside. Emily looked up at him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "I think your mom suspects something." The words hit Alex like a punch to the gut. "What do you mean?" "She called me earlier," Emily explained, her voice trembling. "She asked if we'd been spending time together. She didn't sound angry, but I think she knows, Alex." Alex ran a hand through his hair, trying to process. "What did you say?" "I didn't know what to say," Emily exclaimed, her voice rising. "I just told her we'd run into each other a few times, but I don't think she believed me." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was thick with tension, the weight of their secret pressing down on them. Finally, Alex broke the silence. "Maybe it's time we stop hiding," he said, his voice steady. "Maybe we just tell her the truth." Emily's eyes widened. "Alex, we can't. She's your mom. This could destroy your relationship with her. And what about us?" Alex shot back. "What happens if we keep pretending? Do we just keep sneaking around forever?" Emily looked away, her shoulders slumping. "I don't know. I don't know what the right thing to do is." Alex stepped closer, his voice softening. "The right thing is to stop lying. To stop pretending like this doesn't matter. Because it does, Emily. You matter." For a moment, Emily looked like she might argue. But then, to Alex's surprise, she nodded. "Okay," she said quietly. "We'll tell her. But not yet. Let's just figure out how first." Alex agreed, but the unease lingered. He knew that the truth wouldn't stay hidden for long, and he wasn't sure how his mom would react when it finally came out. The truth came sooner than either of them expected. A week later, Alex's mom invited Emily over for dinner. It wasn't unusual. Emily was a regular guest, but this time, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. His mom was quieter than usual, her smiles not quite reaching her eyes. And Emily, for her part, seemed on edge, her laughter forced and brittle. As the evening wore on, the tension in the room became almost unbearable. And then, just as they were finishing dessert, Alex's mom put down her fork and looked directly at him. "Alex," she said, her tone calm but firm, "is there something you want to tell me?" Alex froze, his heart pounding. "What do you mean?" His mom's gaze shifted to Emily, who looked as though she might break under the weight of it. "I've noticed the way you two act around each other. It's not normal." For a moment, Alex didn't know what to say. He glanced at Emily, who was staring at her plate, her hands trembling. Finally, he took a deep breath and said the words that had been sitting heavy in his chest for weeks. "Mom, Emily and we've been seeing each other." The silence that followed was deafening. Alex's mom stared at him, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she turned to Emily. "Is this true?" she asked. Emily hesitated, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes." The room felt like it was spinning. Alex braced himself for an explosion, for yelling, for accusations. But instead, his mom let out a long, shaky breath and leaned back in her chair. "I don't even know what to say," she said finally. "This is unexpected." "Mom, I'm sorry," Alex said quickly. "We didn't mean for this to happen, but it did. And it's real." His mom shook her head, her expression a mix of confusion and disbelief. I don't understand. Emily, you're my friend. How could you let this happen?" Emily's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't plan this," she said, her voice breaking. "It just happened." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Alex's mom stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I need some time to process this," she said, her voice shaking. "Please, both of you, just leave." The drive home was silent. Emily stared out the window, her face pale and drawn. Alex wanted to say something, to comfort her, but he didn't know how. He felt like he'd just torn his family apart, and the guilt was suffocating. When they reached Emily's house, she turned to him, her eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, Alex," she whispered. "I never wanted to come between you and your mom." "This isn't your fault," Alex said firmly. "We'll figure this out. Together." But as he drove away, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything was falling apart. The line they had crossed had left a mark, and there was no going back. The truth came out in the most unexpected way, unraveling the fragile world Alex and Emily had built. One evening, Alex's mom walked into the room while he was on the phone with Emily. He hadn't noticed her standing in the doorway, and the tone of his voice, soft, intimate, immediately caught her attention. "Alex," his mom said sharply, startling him. "Were you just talking to Emily?" He stammered, his face flushing. Yeah. She needed help with something." His mom's eyes narrowed. Help with what? You've been spending a lot of time with her lately. Alex opened his mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. The silence stretched between them, heavy and oppressive. His mom's expression shifted, a flicker of realization crossing her face. Alex, she said slowly, her voice trembling, is there something going on between you and Emily? He hesitated for a moment too long, and that was all the confirmation she needed. Her face paled, and she sank into the nearest chair. I can't believe this. Emily? My best friend? How could you? How could she? Mom, it's not like that, Alex interjected, his voice pleading. It just happened. We didn't plan this. Her eyes flashed with anger. Didn't plan it? Alex, she's twice your age. She's my friend. Do you have any idea what this could do to our family? To her reputation? Alex tried to explain, but his words felt hollow even to himself. His mom shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. I trusted her. I trusted you. The conversation ended with his mom storming out of the room, slamming the door behind her. Alex sat in the silence, his chest tight and his thoughts racing. He wanted to call Emily to warn her, but he didn't know how to even begin that conversation. The fallout was swift. His mom stopped speaking to him, retreating into icy silence. The warmth of their home was replaced by an unbearable tension. Alex could see the pain etched on her face every time she looked at him, and the guilt weighed on him like a stone. Emily, meanwhile, faced her own battles. Word spread quickly among her social circle, though she never figured out who had spilled the secret. Whispers followed her everywhere, at work, at the grocery store, even during her morning walks. People she had once considered friends now avoided her, their judgment clear in their sidelong glances. I don't know how they found out, Emily admitted one night over the phone, her voice trembling. But it's like the whole world is against me now. Alex clenched his fists, his frustration boiling over. You shouldn't have to go through this alone. I'm here, Emily. I'll always be here. But even as he said the words, he couldn't ignore the strain their relationship was under. Emily began pulling away, her once warm texts growing colder and less frequent. She avoided his visits, always offering some vague excuse about being busy or needing space. One evening, Alex showed up at her door unannounced. She hesitated before letting him in, and when she did, her expression was guarded. We need to talk, Emily said, motioning for him to sit. Alex's stomach sank. He could feel what was coming before she even said it. This isn't working, she began, her voice breaking. I can't do this, Alex. The judgment, the whispers, it's too much. And your mom, she hates me now. She doesn't hate you, Alex said quickly. She's just upset. She'll come around. Emily shook her head, tears streaming down her face. You don't understand. I've lost so much already, my marriage, my stability. And now I'm losing my friends too. I can't lose everything, Alex. You're not losing me, Alex insisted, his voice firm. We can get through this together. But Emily looked at him with a sadness that cut him to the core. I don't know if we can. This isn't fair to either of us. You deserve someone who doesn't come with all this baggage, someone your own age. And I deserve a life where I'm not constantly looking over my shoulder. The words felt like a knife to his chest, but Alex could see the truth in her eyes. She was breaking, and as much as he wanted to fix it, he knew he couldn't. I don't want to lose you, he said quietly, his voice trembling. Emily reached out, her hand brushing his cheek. You'll always have a piece of me, Alex. But we can't keep doing this. It's tearing us apart. The breakup was devastating for both of them. Alex felt like he was walking through a fog, each day heavier than the last. Emily, too, struggled to find her footing, retreating further into herself as she tried to rebuild her life. His mom eventually softened, though their relationship was never quite the same. She avoided the topic of Emily entirely, as if erasing her from their lives would somehow fix the damage. Months later, Alex spotted Emily at a cafe, sitting alone with a book. She looked different, stronger, more at peace. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. She smiled softly, a smile that spoke of forgiveness and understanding. Alex nodded in return, his heart aching with a bittersweet mix of longing and closure. They didn't speak, but in that silent exchange, they both knew they had been forever changed by what they had shared. As Alex walked away, he felt a sense of finality settle over him. The pain was still there, but so was the understanding that sometimes love wasn't enough. Sometimes the consequences were too great, and the only way forward was to let go. The months following their separation were difficult, but Alex found solace in the lessons he had learned. Life didn't return to normal, not entirely. His relationship with his mom was still strained, though they had begun to rebuild the trust that had been fractured. They spoke more openly now, with Alex making an effort to assure her that he had grown from the experience. Emily, too, moved forward in her own way. She rekindled her love for painting, rediscovering the passion she had long since abandoned. Her house, once filled with half-unpacked boxes and empty walls, was now vibrant and alive with her artwork. It became her sanctuary, a place where she could heal and find herself again. One day, Alex received an unexpected text from Emily. "Thank you for encouraging me to pick up the brush again. I think I've finally found my footing." Her words brought a bittersweet smile to his face. He replied simply, "You always had it in you. I'm glad you see it now." Though they didn't speak often, Alex and Emily maintained a quiet understanding. They had been through something profound together, something that had reshaped them both. But they also knew that the only way to truly move forward was to let the past remain in the past. For Alex, the experience left him more thoughtful and introspective. He realized how easily emotions could blur boundaries, and how even the best intentions could lead to unintended pain. His feelings for Emily were real, but he now understood that love required more than just passion. It required timing, trust, and a foundation that neither of them could provide in their situation. He poured his energy into his own growth, focusing on his career and friendships. Slowly but surely, he began to feel like himself again. He even started dating, though he was cautious, determined not to repeat the mistakes of the past. He wanted to build something solid, something that could withstand the challenges life threw his way. One evening, months after their last encounter, Alex found himself walking by a gallery in town. He stopped in his tracks when he saw Emily's name on a placard in the window. Curious, he stepped inside, his heart racing with a mix of nerves and excitement. The gallery was filled with her work, bold, emotional pieces that told a story of resilience and self-discovery. Each painting seemed to capture a moment, a feeling, a fragment of her journey. And in the center of the room, he saw her, Emily, standing tall and confident, greeting guests with a warm smile. She spotted him almost immediately, her expression softening. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the weight of their shared history hanging in the air. Then she walked over, her smile widening. "Alex," she said warmly, "I wasn't sure I'd see you here. I almost didn't come," he admitted, his voice steady but soft. "But I'm glad I did. Your work is incredible." "Thank you," she said, her eyes shimmering with gratitude. "It means a lot to hear that from you." They spoke briefly, their conversation light but meaningful. When the evening ended, Alex walked away feeling a strange sense of closure. Emily was thriving, and so was he. They had both found their way, even if it wasn't the way they had once imagined. As he stepped out into the cool night air, Alex reflected on everything that had happened. The experience with Emily had taught him about love, boundaries, and the importance of self-awareness. It had been painful, yes, but it had also been transformative. In the end, he realized it wasn't about what they had lost. It was about what they had gained, a deeper understanding of themselves and the strength to move forward. And as he walked down the street, the weight on his shoulders felt just a little lighter. If you were in Alex or Emily's position, what would you have done? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Relationships and boundaries can be so complex, but every choice teaches us something new. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more gripping stories, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Stay tuned. Our next story will leave you speechless.